I'm Suchil.
And I'm Myra, and we're here with Besties in Business, B2B TV. And today we're talking to Tanjila Islam from Tiger Trade.
About global trade, importing, exporting, and spreading out excesses, which I think is pretty interesting. So can you tell us a little bit about your company and how you got started?
Sure. So thanks so much for having me here. I'm really excited to be here, and I'm really excited about what you guys are doing to support women entrepreneurs.
Thanks. To be supported.
So a little bit about Tiger Trade. Well, we are a global export-import company, and we originally started as an online sourcing company, so connecting international buyers to manufacturers in Southeast Asia and the fashion and decor industries, specifically in Indonesia, Vietnam, the Philippines, and Thailand. Interestingly, the first events that we had in Indonesia to launch our business, the manufacturers were coming up to me and saying, hey, can we also sell our excess inventory through your platform? And at that time, I really did not know about that issue. So I was like, well, I mean, not yet, but maybe, you know? And so, you know, we started the sourcing platform and began connecting buyers to these factories overseas. And the question for excess inventory kept coming up. Manufacturers, retailers, brands kept reaching out to us and saying, hey, can you help us sell this overstock that we have to someplace else. And it kept coming up, and I was like, you know what, there's got to be something here, because I have buyers
I keep hearing about this, and I didn't even know it was an issue.
I know. And I was like, buyers keep coming to me, asking me for this excess inventory. Manufacturers want to sell it. So I was like, let's get started. Let's see what we can do. And so then we launched a new part of the business called Tiger Trade Stock Lots, where we basically sell excess inventory from wholesalers, retailers, and brands to wholesalers and retail chains worldwide. And so we, on the sourcing side, we connect buyers worldwide to Southeast Asia, but on the stock lot side, we actually have a large amount of suppliers here in the U.S., and we export overseas.
So I think that, you know, because we have had a lot of clients and things in fashion, like, everybody's obsession is, where can I get things manufactured? So I think when we first found out about your company, we were like, oh, this is great. But like, we were like, oh, this is great, but not in the way that we thought it was. So like, it's really, we were surprised too. Like, I don't, so it's interesting to see what percentage is export of excess and what's kind of sourcing and import, like, of what your company does.
Well, they're two very different businesses. The sourcing business is very much kind of like a matchmaking business, so we're not doing really transactional business on that. We kind of match buyers and suppliers, and we work with we have over 3,500 suppliers in our network across Southeast Asia, and we work with over 2,000 buyers. On the stock lot side, though, we are working with retail chains throughout the Middle East, Mexico, Paraguay, Australia, New Zealand, Hong Kong, France, Germany, South Africa, Canada. We really sell to both brick and mortar retail chains as well as big flash sale sites worldwide.
Flash sale sites. That makes so much sense. How did you get into this?
I was going to say, tell us about like what led you to the first iteration, and then what made,
Sure. So it's kind of a funny story. Well, it's a little bit of a long story, but my passion has always been, economic development and how can we help grow economies, especially in the developing world. So my earlier career, I was a consultant, and I used to design economic development and trade programs for the U.S. Agency for International Development, the World Bank, and I worked in countries like Afghanistan, Indonesia, Bangladesh, Nepal, Indonesia. I would go into a country, kind of say, okay, what are the sectors for growth in this country? Like, how can we create jobs? How can we create sales? How can we increase incomes? And then looking at those sectors, we think about, okay, how can we grow these sectors to have this impact and have this economic impact? And usually there was always a component of those programs where we'd be promoting trade and connecting the local entrepreneurs and the manufacturers to international markets, because that was like the #1 problem. How do these entrepreneurs and factories, connect to overseas buyers? And also, like, a lot of times overseas buyers are looking for new markets to get into, but they don't really know where to start or how to go there. So, the programs that I designed were huge. They're multi-million-dollar programs with infrastructure development, accessing finance, but I always found, like, wow, this is where we're getting the biggest bang for our buck when we're connecting, these companies, like, from different markets and bringing them together, and that's really what helps grow these businesses. So I was doing that for a number of years, but I thought, you know what, like this is very unsustainable because this is a development program, it's only 3 years, the funding runs out, and then the entrepreneurs are left on their own.
Right.
And I wanted to do something that was, you know, private sector, sustainable, using technology to make this kind of trade promotion and market opportunity more efficient. So then I thought, well, why don't I start an online platform? And I called it Tiger Trade.
Wow. So in your industry, I don't imagine that it's an industry that's just littered with women. Like,
no, not at all.
Like, whatever the Globe Trade Conference is, like I have to imagine that. Like, so was it at all? And your team, your executive team, are all women also. So like, was that at all a challenge for you when you were getting started in terms of like being like a more feminine voice in a that's typically dominated by male voices, and then you were in a tech platform. It's kind of two areas where it's like a little bit less common. So I'm curious how that's been.
Yes,
you know?
it's definitely you know, interesting because there are very few women in the trade industry, and especially even more so in the excess inventory industry. So people are really not used to dealing with women at all.
Right.
And it can be a big shocker to them when all of a sudden they're dealing with me or our team. I mean, doing the business online is completely unusual. Doing this kind of sourcing or wholesale buying and selling, completely unusual, number one. And then dealing with women, completely unusual, number two. So definitely it's been difficult. My previous career, I always worked in very challenging environments for women as well. I did a lot of projects in Afghanistan, so I would walk into a room and people would just sometimes walk out because they were not used to dealing with a woman at all. And there would be times at the end of my projects where the men on my team would come up to me and say, you know, thank you. You know, before I met you and worked with you, I never knew like a woman would be able to do anything like this. So I've been used to kind of, thank God, working in environments where they're not used to working with women at all. Did not think that was going to happen again here in the U.S. working on a global trade company, but definitely, you know, there's a lot of challenging attitudes that we have to face on a daily basis regarding, you know, being a woman in the industry. People are very rough, and it's a very different way of doing business. But, you know, we're here to change the industry, change the business.
What's the scale of your buyer, like on the buyer side? Like, is or would you be a resource for like a mid-sized company or only like a larger business, or like, you know, I guess like I'm trying to get a sense.
That's a good question. If somebody's watching and wants
like
to,
if somebody was watching and is like, you know, I'm trying to like manufacture a shoe line or like start importing shoes from some places that aren't imported. Like, I'm just curious, like what size of an entry level do you need for entry, I guess?
Sure. For the sourcing business, definitely, I mean, I would say our customers are more mid to large size. When you're doing global sourcing, usually in terms of the economics, it makes sense to start sourcing overseas when you start getting into the thousands of pieces and you're shipping container loads. Otherwise, it just becomes a little bit cost prohibitive. Not always, not always. And we do have smaller buyers that are reaching out to us, and that we do work with them to fulfill their orders because we do have smaller factories. And we recently did a small order for a Danish company, fulfillment from Bali. So, you know, we do work with smaller companies, but definitely in terms of the factories, they're usually looking to, you know, service more mid to large size companies.
That makes sense. On a personal level, how on earth do you structure your day if you're literally?
I know. I was like, you must be getting emails around the clock.
Thinking about all those time zones. Like,
we do.
Like, so how do you structure your time? And is it a more unusual day than maybe a person that's like we do a lot of business out on the West Coast, so like you know, when that's happening, like we do a later day, let's say. Like, so I'm just curious. Well,
we definitely have, you know, our customers range from being like all the way in Asia, in Hong Kong, and to, you know, to the West Coast. So we kind of have a 24-hour cycle going. We do have an office in Asia, in Jakarta. So they're really working on kind of servicing all of our Asia clients, especially that are coming in overnight. Our clients know that our office hours are really kind of like 9 to 7 here in the United States, and we try to stay within that just because we don't want to get too crazy. But basically, mornings are usually very busy for us because we are right in the morning we start getting calls and emails from Europe especially. I mean, Asia has already come in, and then they're trying to kind of close out. Europe is like very frantic in the morning. Then of course East Coast gets started. Then afternoon we really busy with West Coast business. So it's pretty busy. It's pretty hectic, I would say.
Yeah. It's got to be like you hit the ground running, and then it's not over till it's
Yes.
over.
How many people work with you at this point?
Right now we're a pretty small team. I would say we're 10 people. So, you know, we have people here in New York, in Miami, and LA, and then also over in Indonesia.
Did you know that this is what it was going to look like when you started this, or has some of it come as like a bit of a surprise? Like, do you know like the intricacy of it?
Oh no, definitely I had no idea what it was going to be like when I started. I mean, my previous career, I was an economic development consultant, so you know, I used to do something completely different. I used to go in and do this economic analysis and design these programs and manage these programs. And I think when I first started the company, I was approaching it from that perspective.
A little more academic.
Exactly, very academic. You know, I developed my business plan. You know, we started putting the buyers and suppliers together. But then, you know, I was never actually a trader. I was never really an exporter or an importer as my profession. So all of a sudden, you know, especially once we started doing the stock lots business, I became a trader and really had to start, you know, learning every single piece of the business, how it worked, every step. And it's been really great, though. It's been really exciting for me. I love it. And, you know, I have a lot more plans for where the business is going to go. And I think just me. Well, you know, we, you know, definitely aggressively expanding the stock lots business, going worldwide. We have pretty significant supplier base here in the United States, and we're exporting. You know, we have customers around the world, over 50 countries that are interacting with us and getting our deals every day, and we export pretty heavily now, but I want to continue growing that, expanding into new sectors. And then on the sourcing side, you know, continue to expand that business as well. And then we're launching a new platform, a third platform focused on trade services.
I saw that.
Yeah. Which we just launched in December, and we're kind of getting that going as well.
It's so interesting. I know this woman, and she's got like a, she imports, she has them produced, but these spatulas, she's going to be coming on. There's like these silicone spatulas, but she said that she's like the #1 issue if you're like selling products is the logistics services for getting your shipments, and distribution of your shipments, like right. And so there's like a giant marketplace.
Huge. It's amazing to me because I think international trade is so exciting and a massive market, but you know, there's not that much innovation being done in it, and so you know, my vision has always been to make Tiger Trade like the premier international online marketplace for global trade, you know, doing sourcing, doing stock lots, doing services, and, you know, expanding into other areas as well down the line.
It's super lovely.
So when you went into it, what is something that along the way that you weren't expecting that has been challenging, and what's something along the way that is easier actually, like now that you're in it? And you're like, that's not as bad as I thought it was.
Well, I mean, I think what's been very challenging is really just, you know, navigating the whole process, you know, because international trade, there's so many steps involved, and there's different criteria when you're exporting to different countries. So every country has their own criteria of what type of paperwork is needed, you know, their customs requirements, and, you know, being able to do that, you know, effectively and efficiently, you know, and working with all these customers has definitely been challenging for us. But, you know, it's something that, you know, we've just been patient, you know, there's, you know, and we've been really careful every time we go into a new country, really understanding what our customers' needs are, what kind of, you know, how they need our support in making this happen, because, you know, the better customer service experience that we can give them, you know, the more likely they are going to be to return and to continue buying. And majority, say 90% of our customers are recurring customers. So once they start buying, we want them to keep buying and keep buying more. What's been easier than expected? I guess what's been easier is just kind of like, it's surprising, but you know, getting on these new customers from around the world. We do very little marketing for our business. Like we actually like don't do any advertising. I mean, we will be, but we just haven't been, because I've been very careful about our growth, because, you know, I didn't want us to get overwhelmed with all these deals that we really can't handle. And so we've been very careful about our growth, but it's been amazing how just these companies, these buyers from around the world find us and reach out to us and connect with us and like tell us what they're looking for, whether it's on the sourcing side or on the stock lot side, and and start doing business. And it's great. I mean, I love it because we always have all these international interns in our office too, who are studying trade, and they come in and they're like, oh my God, we're actually trading. We're dealing with customers from around the world. They can't believe it. Exactly. And it's so cool to me because that's exactly what I set out to do. I set out to kind of open up markets on both sides, using technology and making it a lot more easier all of a sudden that you can be a buyer sitting in South Africa and you can find products here in the US, or you can be here in the US and you can find a factory in Indonesia. So that's what I kind of set out to do, and to see actually it happening, it's really exciting.
And I think it's just good for people to know that you can run something profitable and also expand economies, like because it's stuff that was just going to be otherwise sitting there that's fulfilling a need that somebody else had, things don't necessarily, profit doesn't necessarily mean poison. Like
exactly.
That's kind of like a lovely takeaway too, right? It's fascinating. What advice would you give to a person that was looking to get into trade as a career?
Get into trade as a career. Well, one, I would say, just really be focused on kind of the markets that you're interested in, because like if you global trade is a huge arena. So if you have an industry specific focus and a regional focus, that would probably help in terms of, okay, I'm interested in working on trade, export, import, and fashion, or on car parts or electronics, and then really kind of do some research in terms of, okay, what are the potential markets in this business? Not necessarily what are the common markets, but what are the up and coming markets as well that could offer me a competitive edge. And then kind of go from there and researching, okay, this is the sector, these are some of the markets. Now how can I get in? How can I, if you want to be exporting to a certain market, doing some research and connecting with potential buyers there. If you would like to be importing from a specific market, doing some research to connect with, potential exporters in those countries, but definitely being focused and then not giving up, being tenacious, and then also just do your due diligence and do your homework and don't take anyone's word for anything. It's really important to visit the countries, do your due diligence. There's so many scams out there. We see it every single day. People try to scam us every single day, and it's really important to do your due diligence. But it's a great market. I think the world is only getting more and more and more global every single day, and there's so many opportunities outside of the US that everyone can be a part of. It doesn't matter who you are or where you're sitting. You can be a part of this great global economy. So, I really encourage any woman to get into it.
That's amazing.
Thank you so much for joining us. Are you on social media?
Not really, no.
You can learn more about our business at tigertrade.com. And you can see this video and all the videos at bestiesinbusiness.com and on social media at bestiesinbiz.
And we do actually have a Twitter and Facebook account for our Tiger Trade and Tiger Trade stock lots. They are, but it's more kind of like to follow our offers if you're interested in buying them, but not really I don't have anything personal on social media, but if you're looking for 20,000 swimsuits, you know where to go.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.